All right, Dan, I'm Anna Marie Cox. This is Face
No!
the Nation.
Really? Can I get an autograph?
This is Face the Nation. In this particular context, it is shoot me into space, the nation. Wait, no, shoot Democrat donors directly into space. How about that, Dan? What do you think?
Oh, okay. So I'm Dan Dresner, and this is an emergency patrons-only podcast. And the reason we are doing this is because we are eventually going to get to recording our planned episode, which is A Canticle for Leibowitz. But literally, as we were setting up, we received the notification that Joe Biden had withdrawn from the 2024 election without making it very clear who was going to succeed him, although I think he wants it to be Kamala. And, we're going to talk about that because we're both still processing it. And we might have different reactions because, I'm not crazy about mega donors, but I also don't think this is on them.
I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of bad actors here.
Yes, but go ahead. Who do you think is the baddest actor?
The baddest. I mean, I think it's a tripod, Dan.
Ooh,
it
okay.
is like with triad.
Yeah.
That without any of the other legs, the whole thing may have fallen.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say donors, because donors are control who we have as leadership of the Democratic Party. And then I would say leadership of the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And then I would say media. And what is that? Is that the triumvirate there? Does that not fit in with what your vision is?
No, I will start. I think you're missing. My triad is as follows. Number 1, Joe Biden. Number 2,
he is the seat of the stool, Dan.
Okay. Number 2, Joe Biden's family, and 3, Joe Biden's inner circle.
Oof. There's two stools.
No. So let me start with my stool, and then you go to your stool, because I think in some ways it's the sequencing. I cannot describe how angry I am at Biden, his family, and his staff, because whatever you want to say about how this is played out, there are, I think, 3 facts that are undeniable. The first is Biden's debate performance was catastrophic and legitimately called into question his ability to actually run the campaign he needs to run and to be president for the next 4 years. This is not just superficial stuff. He was incoherent at times. He was also not great in the follow-up interviews with George Stephanopoulos, with Lester Holt. He had some good moments. He had the NATO press conference. He did a couple campaign speeches. It's not that he doesn't have good days, but he has bad days too. He has a lot of bad days. And what became clear in the wake of the debate was that the debate was not the first time he'd had a bad day. So there were multiple reports about that sort of glitzy fundraiser that happened in LA. Clooney wrote the op-ed. Obama made it clear he thought something was off. This all suggests that, Joe Biden clearly has the cognitive ability, was a good president, ran in 2020, but something has happened over the last 6 months, at least, to where he couldn't do stuff. So it's on Biden. It's also on Biden's staff, which, one of the interesting other things that comes out is that it's very clear, and this starts with COVID from day one, Biden was kept at a remove from sort of the larger political universe. And while that made sense with COVID, I think that became the norm. And the rationalization you could offer is that as Biden slowly declined, I'm sure the staff just started compensating as an instinctive thing. But the point is that it was shocking to see how much he had changed. And then finally, it's the family, because they, of all people, should have seen this coming. And understandably, we're loyal to Biden.
Hunter's fault.
Yeah. Also, this was the other thing. All the stories suggesting that Biden was relying on Hunter for political advice post-debate. I mean, fuck that noise. I have between Hunter Biden and mega donors, I am not going to blame mega donors that. They are smarter people. So my point is
addicts of a kind.
Yes. Okay. But my point is that however ugly the last month has been, in the end, this goes back to Biden and his staff for trying to think they could somehow white knuckle through this. And remember, the June debate was their idea. And nonetheless, realize there's actually a small part of me that wonders if there's a senior staffer that wanted this June debate to sabotage Biden, but that's like deep conspiracy stuff, and I really don't think that's true. But
so again, my
okay.
very tangential 3 degrees removed knowledge of all this is that non-high level staffers were shocked by how badly the debate went.
Right.
Like, I think that the high level staffers, and this is just my gut feeling about that, knew they were gambling, but thought it was a gamble worth taking. Like, had seen him have enough good days.
Right.
That were like, all right, this could work. It's so crazy, it just might work.
It's a risky plan, but it just might work on it. Yes.
Yeah. It like, and they envisioned it like, and they envisioned only needing like one good debate, probably. They're like, we're going to do the one good debate, and then we're going to like, oh, we can't debate a convicted, whatever. Like, can't.
Yeah.
They'd figure out some way to get out of it. I will say 2 minutes ago on a post on Shitter, Biden endorsed Harris.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
This is how breaking news we're at.
Good Lord. Seriously? Wow. Damn. That's how breaking this is. Yes, we're doing this in real time, folks.
Yeah. So that's good, because my immediate concern was that there would be this implication that, I picked a vice president who's not ready, which would be bad.
Yeah.
Now, there is a con to Harris as a selection, which is that America is still pretty fucking racist. So there's that. However, she is a cop, which should soothe some people's hesitation. And by which I mean she was a prosecutor. She put a lot of people in jail, ACAB, but fine. I actually do support this nomination. And that also, the reason I support it, Dan, as you know, I've been saying for a long time, this election needs to be a referendum on abortion, because that is how the Democrats have won every election since Dobbs.
And by the way, this has been Harris's. Harris did not have a great vice presidency. Like her first year in the vice presidency, she stumbled. By the way, hardly unique to Harris. This is just
I think they set her up to fail in some way.
Yeah, they did. The vice president is often the dumping ground of policy problems that the president doesn't want to deal with, so on and so forth. But the point is, since 2022, Harris has been the spokesperson on Dobbs and has, I think, actually done a good job. And the other thing I will give credit to Harris for, which is throughout this entire month, while a lot of Democrats wanted Biden to step down, you heard zero from Harris and her staff, which is interesting. I mean, this is politics 101. Obviously, they can't say anything. But Harris's staff leaked like a sieve the first year.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's not known for discretion.
Exactly. This at least suggests that she's done a good job of improving her staff, which is, encouraging, I guess would be the way to put it.
Yeah, and I'll go back to my stool, but I guess there's a whole bar room of stools here.
There are. Yeah,
and because I think your thinking sounds, resonates with me, and I do think there hasn't been enough criticism of Biden. Right. And because I listen to right-wing radio.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Go ahead. Go.
Okay, Dan. You're excited. I'm excited. This happens. It's one of the things that makes this a good podcast is we have a really good flow, but I'm going to finish my thought.
No, sorry. I apologize. Go.
I know that this is also your thing even more than mine. So, all right. But I think that because I listen to right-wing radio, I have gotten more exposure to criticisms of Biden. And that's on the right. And they have some legitimate criticisms of him. Not all of it is making fun of him and saying that he wants to trans kids. I mean, some of it has been what the fuck, he's selfish, and why is his family doing this to him? Which is a little bit, I don't know if that's quite the right way to frame it.
That's crocodile tears. But let me put it this way. I agree
but they're
with
enabling him for sure.
Right. And there's no denying that the claim of Biden as a doddering old man originated from the right wing. And as it turned out, seems to have some correspondence to facts.
Where I feel like other commentators could have landed some blows was he's being selfish. The other thing I want to say about this is the sort of ageism part of it. And I wrote something about this, but of course no one reads anything that's not controversial. which is that it's not ageist to say that someone who is having mental slips and cognitive decline should step aside. It is ageist to say old people should step aside.
Right.
And I think that the messaging on this got really confused. Like the talk about it all became he's too old.
Yeah.
And that is not something I think we could have gotten more traction and it wouldn't be like as weird or anything. And if anyway, I feel like that is a distinction I want to make because you know, there are plenty of older statesmen out there who are fine.
One of whom
Liz Warren, Bernie Sanders,
Nancy Pelosi. Like
Nancy Pelosi.
I mean, people who were pushing Biden aside were older than Biden in some cases. And also people who were older than Biden were defending him in the case of Bernie Sanders.
Also, Gen X erasure is a thing. And so happy to have Kamala.
Kamala!
Like, I was so upset about like the skipping of Gen X to JD Vance.
By the way, JD Biden sounds like one of those law firms that you'd see an advertisement for on like, you know, morning TV.
Have you been injured in a car or truck commercial vehicle accident? Call JD Biden.
Call JD Biden. 1-800-JD Biden.
777 2222, something like that. Anyway,
no, it would be 1-800-JD Biden. Like that.
JD Biden, very nice. Yes. So I'm trying to think, and I want to get the little bit of media in there, which is that I just get. It's because I am current/former in this, and it's one of the reasons why I become so disgusted. It is the bias of journalists to want things to be exciting and to live in historical times, to like cover stuff that's never happened before. And I understand that. I do. But there was it is the Hillary's emails of this cycle. Like
okay, no, I'm going to so let me offer
in terms of just how many stories can you do? How many stories can you do on this?
Okay, I want to go for a little bit on this, and then I want you to like you feel free to correct me. I think a few things on this. The first is this is not the same as the emails. The emails were obviously a problem and they were an ethical lapse, but like they were, you're right in the sense that they were a tempest in a teapot and, you know, not really that big of a deal compared to the news coverage. Biden potentially not having the cognitive capacity to campaign and or be president is a bigger story. It merits more media coverage. So that I think that's where the comparison is unfair. The other thing, though, that I think is going on is that the way I would put it is that I think part of what was, I think two dynamics kicked in post-debate that turned this into a media frenzy. The first was, I think a lot of members of the media covering Biden felt burned by the debate performance. In other words, this was a story that had been like bubbling underneath the surface for most of 2024 and even late 2023. A lot of them had not reported on it. And suddenly they're like, oh crap, we missed this. We've got to get on this. And I think that was combined with something you said before, which is the other thing to realize is that, again, credit to Biden, his staff, not just his inner circle, but his larger staff were pretty tight. Like they were closed-lipped. You did not hear a lot of embarrassing Biden stories in comparison, particularly to Trump, throughout his first 3 years. But I think what the debate did was suddenly anyone who was not in his inner circle were willing to talk to reporters. So suddenly reporters were more interested, and that was the demand. And the supply was you had a lot of Biden staffers and a lot of Democrats suddenly willing, in some cases, to go on the record, in most cases anonymously. But the point is they gave good quotes. And so that generated a lot of the coverage.
I grant you that it's a bigger story, that the comparison is not 1-to-1.
Sure.
It's not oranges to oranges. It might be oranges to tangelos. I don't know, oranges to clementines. Okay. In that, let's see, in the emails would be the smaller
the clementines,
fruit.
Yes, the emails the clementines. Just to be clear.
The emails of clementines. Yes. Right. What they have in common is the amount of stories that are done on something. You're saying it's bigger news. It is bigger news, but I just felt like there was a lot of more. Maybe this is the pundit class that I'm more frustrated with, and less like reporters. Although fair. The line is like, you know, there's gray area, especially in how reporters have conceived of themselves over this, especially it's the Trump era. There's been more like, I guess my opinions are kind of important and I will kind of slide them into this story,
No, yeah.
And and then there's a certain it's important, but at the same time, the policies.
Sure.
Like, what are the policies that might, and that truth is what policies would change from Biden to Harris? None.
Well, we'll see, but I think you're right. But let me put it this way. This is where I agree with you 100% on this. And this is where the fact that Trump is now the front runner, part of the problem with 2016 was that the media thought, okay, Trump's not really going to win. We should focus on Clinton. Yeah. What are her policies? What are her issues? And you know what? I don't actually necessarily begrudge that. The idea is that the front runner should merit more focus, more critical coverage, precisely because they could win.
Right.
But this is where I agree with you in the sense of, if Trump is the front runner, treat him like the goddamn front runner, which means focus on Project 2025. Focus
and Project
on the Republican
47
Party
is the other
Agenda 47.
Agenda 47.
Yeah. Focus on what he has been promising to do. Focus on the fact that his convention acceptance speech was actually also borderline incoherent. Ask questions about his cognitive capacity. In other words, there is a whole array of stories, if you want to talk about, Trump as the frontrunner, that raise questions about whether or not he can be president for 4 years. So, there's a lot of road for the media to cover. And I agree with you. Hopefully, the one concern I have is that if it winds up being Harris, suddenly the media feels like, well, we've got to give her another look. And again, it's another month where Trump is off the hook. And so we'll see how this next month plays out.
I agree. And I think that the coverage, and in some ways the coverage, we'll keep this in because I'm not going to edit this, but my best friend in town who she's I met her because she's a dog trainer and we've become really good friends.
Okay.
And I only put that context in there because this happens sometimes with politics. She just texted me, what the fuck is happening?
I'm sorry, we shouldn't laugh at this.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question from someone who's she follows politics. She watches MSNBC.
I think you should tell her, by the way, that the answer is that at the Democratic National Convention, they're going to nominate Mitt Romney to be the presidential candidate. They're going to listen to Aaron Sorkin and, do the right thing and nominate a good white Republican. By the way, so just a brief aside, I swear to God, I thought that was a Times parody when it first came out. Why did the Times
Andy
ask
Borowitz
Sorkin?
Special?
Why did the Times ask Aaron Sorkin in the first place? And could Aaron Sorkin have picked a more Aaron Sorkin formula for this? Even Sorkin has to look at this and think, I've done this before.
Dan, I was thinking we should start to wrap up, and now we get to advertise our Dead Zone episode.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. God.
Starring
Christopher Walken.
Bartlett.
Starring Martin Sheen, yes, as a a equally perhaps charismatic politician, but much more dangerous politician than Josiah Bartlett. Yes.
Yeah. So let's wrap up giving people a little bit of Space the Nation traditional stuff, which is that what questions can we answer now about who would write the version, who would write the fictional version of what's happening?
Oh my God. Wait, who do we think will, or who do we want? Who
do we think what would be if this was happening in the sci-fi universe? What's what is an author we'd want to tackle it? And then I'm trying to think. I had another idea. And what piece of science fiction could people read to kind of set them up for what might happen? And would it be Canticle for Leibowitz?
I'm going to answer that last question first. No, I hope it would not be Canticle for Leibowitz. Who all I keep thinking of is who I don't want to write it.
Okay,
so
good.
I don't want George Lucas to write this. I don't want this to be like the Star Wars prequels. I definitely don't want Sorkin to do it. Although this does ask the question, what do you think? I now kind of am curious what would happen if Sorkin ever did a sci-fi thing. Like that.
Well, one could argue that West Wing was kind of speculative fiction.
There we go. Well, yeah, he
what about Tony Gilroy?
Oh man,
I think we've hit on it.
Tony
think that
Gilroy,
we have hit on
yes.
It's the combination of machinations, right? and heroics,
and actually, the
and
other thing,
having to sacrifice your personal morals for the greater good.
I will also say that I think one of the other screenwriters for Andor was Beau Wilmot, who was one of the showrunners for House of Cards in the first couple of seasons. So
there we go. We have hit upon it. This is an emergency episode. I am actually going to upload this today, which is Sunday, July 21st.
You should do it right now before
I'm actually going to do it right now.
Okay, yeah.
And so we're going to go back to recording our regularly scheduled episode. The episode that is up right now,
A Quiet Place Day 1.
A Quiet Place Day 1, which is, apocalyptic, I guess, but not really something. If you want, maybe it could be considered escapist in this context.
Yes.
All right, Dan, thank you for going along with this, because we're going to talk about it anyway. And I just decided
no. This was much more fun, actually. I think this was a good idea. Yeah.
All right. Until like 5 minutes from now, Dan.
Keep this channel open for more.